to Survive in Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive in Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care Technologies, the future of sports medicine. To check out them and their PEMF machine, go to the top of the GruelingTruth.net page, click the banner, it'll take you right to the website. First up, we have a man that is a legend. He's from Canada. No, I'm kidding, Steve. We have Steve Risley, former Indiana Hoosier. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great, Mike. How you doing today?
All right. And next up, we have, of course, our foil from Canada, because every show needs a guy that's a little bit off and a little bit different, a little bit weird, and has stupid opinions. Help me welcome to the show, Lukas Weese. How you doing, Lukas?
Mike, I'm doing well. Looking forward to being you in another debate today.
Yeah, like yesterday. All right, I can barely hear you, Lukas. You're going to have to come out of the tunnel up there. Are you guys preparing for winter, and you're down in the tunnel and trying to stay out of the storms?
Oh, yeah.
See, Mike, if you had any creative thought process in your brain at all, you say, are you coming out of the igloo? Make it funny if you're going to just,
because
coming out of the tunnel.
I don't see igloos in Canada. I see igloos in Alaska.
They have igloos in Canada too, big dog.
Okay.
The Canucks.
Do you have an igloo? Do you have an igloo anywhere near your house, Lukas?
No.
Thank you.
No.
Lukas, yes, you do. Down around the corner is the Igloo Frozen Treats ice cream shop. I've been there.
No, you haven't. You've never been to Toronto. They wouldn't let you go across the border. Because I remember the Prime Minister, they actually built a wall to keep Risley's out. Or was that Grizzlies? I don't remember which.
Back in my day, I used to live in Windsor.
Sure you did. In your mind.
We're all the strip clubs. We're all the strip clubs. Good strip clubs were.
Well, that'll show you. When you got to pay to even look at it, that's when you got a problem. Lukas, let me ask you. You're a baseball fan. What did you think of Bryce Harper last night?
Well, it was an incredible home run derby, one of the best that I've ever seen in some time. I mean, I love the home run derby. It's a lot of fun. It gets people together, and just great to see the home run team, hit a lot of dingers. It was really close between Harper and Kyle Schwarber, but Bryce Harper, of course, hitting 19 homers in the final round. He then breaks an MLB home run derby record, 223 home runs. So congrats to Bryce Harper in front of the home fans. It was great to see.
Steve, were you enthralled by the home run derby?
Mike, I did not watch the home run derby. If I'm going to watch made-for-TV stupid events like the home run derby, I stick to the Kardashians because at least I get some TNA on it. So, I think those things are just ESPN specials. You get up there and turn a 3-hour baseball game into another boring 3-day weekend of hoopla, fan fest, and let's sell some more commercials.
Well, I think it's much better than the game itself, though.
Probably is. I don't watch the All-Star game either. I think it's boring.
You're a communist.
All
right.
Wait a minute. If you take away the ability, which I thought they used to do, they played that All-Star game to give you home field advantage in the World Series. If they've taken that away, the game becomes even more meaningless.
Well, they took it away because it was stupid. And the Major League Baseball All-Star game is probably, out of all the All-Star games, the closest one to being a real game, Lukas.
Yeah, it is a real game, yeah. And that made it a real game. It puts some value on it by playing for World Series.
It's by far the best.
Yeah, but it's not even close.
Of all the professional sports.
Yeah, it's not even close, Mike.
I know.
That's why I thought it was a good thing to go ahead and play for home field advantage in the World Series for that game. It put meaning to it.
I don't think it
did. It meant something.
I think it made it worse. I think it took meaning away from the World Series because if you have a team that wins 103 games, but they have to be the away team against a wild card team that won 87 games, I think that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. So, all right, whatever.
So, we'll just start it off with, I won again. Next up, we've got...
I've got some sports news to cover first before we get into your silly little... I was going to bring those up,
and since you can't pronounce anybody's name, I was going to start it off, but go ahead. Don't mess it up.
Okay. We talked about Bryce Harper wins the home run contest. British Open starts this week. It'll be the biggest sporting event in the world going on right now.
No, it won't.
For the week. That shows you how you how weak the sports schedule is this week.
Gossiev and Usyk is a much bigger event.
What? Who? What?
Gossiev against Usyk for the Cruiserweight Championship of the World is a much bigger event, especially over in Europe.
What is that? Cruiserweight? Is that
Mike, what are you talking about?
Of course, because you guys don't know anything about real sports. We all want to talk about golf, and we want to talk about NASCAR, but something that's real we don't want to talk about. So go ahead, Steve.
What cruiserweight? Is that some kind of Navy race?
They're both undefeated.
Battleships, destroyers,
they're both undefeated.
Cruisers?
They're great fighters. They're fighting to be the
it's a
best
boxing
200-pounder in the world.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about the British Open. A bunch of rich white men that get out and smack balls around, and they have caddies because they can't think for themselves.
If I wanted to watch a good fight, I'd go to a hockey match.
Yeah.
There you go.
Those guys fight. They fight without gloves.
Game.
They fight without gloves, without mouthpieces, and they go at each other. They throw their gloves off when they fight.
I believe hockey players do wear mouthpieces, don't they, Lucas?
And they usually get knocked out of their mouth on the first punch because they're getting hit with a fist and not some 16-pound bag of feathers.
16 pounds?
Exactly.
16-ounce bag of feathers.
Mouthpiece is gone the first punch.
Yeah.
Right. Mouthpiece is gone.
All right, so you want to talk about the Baltimore Oriole that, doesn't want to go back to his team? Tell us about him.
Yes, Manny Macchiato.
It's Machado.
Macchiato in my language.
Jeez. I'll tell you what, I have less and less respect for Indiana University to the fact that you get a degree from it every time you open your mouth and say a foreigner's name. But go ahead.
I could tell stories about what you think of foreigners off the air. But I will not do it because we're on the air.
But that would be a complete lie because you always have to make up falsities just because you can't pronounce words. I mean, it's Manny
says that after the All-Star break, the Orioles better do something because he is not going to report back to the Orioles after the All-Star break. So Mike, I'm going to ask you this question. So just go play with your dogs.
Because I know about
Lucas,
it. I can tell you.
When is the trade deadline? Where is he going to get traded to and by who? What's the trade deadline?
He's going to go to either Philadelphia or Los Angeles. Lucas will answer the trade deadline question because I don't want to leave him out.
Lucas, when is the trade deadline?
It's Friday.
What? Friday. So he's going to be either in a Phillies uniform or a Dodger uniform by Friday.
Yes.
Good. I hope it's the Dodgers because I'm out here in L.A. and we could use another great player.
Yeah, that you can't.
Not that we don't have a handful of them.
Can you say Fernando Valenzuela?
Fernando Valenzuela.
But you can't say Manny Machado. All right.
What else? Manny Machado. Steve? I like Macchiato. The lawsuit was filed yesterday by the former wrestlers at Ohio State. Another tragic case of sexual abuse by a team physician, Dr. Richard Strauss. About 20 former wrestlers have filed a class action lawsuit against Dr. Strauss, claiming that the university once again knew what was going on and failed to take action on it. My question is, where the hell is the NCAA in all this? Really, truly, are they that inept and weak that they can't get a grasp on this stuff and don't have an overriding policy to police? I'm just blaming the NCAA on this stuff just because I'm down in the dumps about those idiots.
Well, my question is this. The thing that seems really interesting to me is since Ohio State announced these investigations into the allegations in April 2018, several former Buckeye wrestlers have come forward and accused Representative Jim Jordan, who's a Republican from Ohio, of actually ignoring the accounts of alleged abuse.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the universities or the presidents, is it really, Mike or Lucas, either one, is it really just that money is that overpowering for anybody to ever do the right thing anymore?
Yeah, it is.
Is it really?
Yeah, I mean, look at it. We've included a politician. Politicians do it all the time. They're supposed to be the ones that run the country. So if the people that run the country are scumbags, it kind of filters down.
Which I'm going to sidebar here just for a second. I'm going to make a public service announcement. If you have not, or you need to watch a show called Who is America with Sacha Baron Cohen. You all know who Sacha Baron Cohen is.
Yeah.
Yes, Borat.
Borat, exactly. He disguises himself and goes in and gets interviews with politicians. We were crying how sad it was. He gave them cue cards to read. He thought they were doing these interviews for overseas. Like he professed to be a Lebanese military officer and wanted to talk about arming children in schools. And they had this one congressman on who was all for it. He read a statement that they didn't even really read because it listed about 5 different celebrities in the statement, and he would name it like the Taylor Swift Act or the Justin Timberlake Discovery Foundation. And this guy was just reading it and had no idea what he was reading. And he just was reading it because he was getting paid to read it. And he thought it was not going to be shown in the United States. He's got a lot of Congress pissed off at him. He's got these interviews with people, and they're all going to air. Like Sarah Palin, he did Sarah Palin, apparently nailed her to the wall. But it just shows. You just got to watch the show. It makes Trump look like an angel.
Well,
I'll tell you, it's that bad.
And I'm pretty sure that, I mean, it just doesn't surprise me. I'll just put it that way.
It will surprise you. It's so blatant. It's on Showtime. It's shown throughout the week. You just got to watch it. I mean, it's scary, sad. This is what our country has come to, and things like with Ohio State and God, how many universities is just going on. The presidents are sitting there breathing, praying to God that they don't get called out on it, because I'll guarantee you it's more than 10 and less than 300.
All right, what else you got?
So there's only 300 Division I schools. Sports-wise, there's a NASCAR race this weekend. It's in Loudon, New Hampshire. They give away a big 30-pound, 40-pound lobster to the winner, so he has dinner for his team afterwards. They give him a live lobster. The ASPCA will be all over. They give him a live lobster, and they drop it in a tank and boil it.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. But it's a great race. Other than that, that's it. It's a slow day in sports when golf is probably the biggest event happening this week. So, besides the All-Star game, although, for the baseball lovers, it's a great thing. But I do agree the All-Star game is probably the most legitimate All-Star game of all played in terms of really the guys.
A lot of that is you just don't have the physical contact in baseball.
Right, yeah. But still, you got pitcher's arms you don't want to wear out and stress, and, you got some players that are still nursing midseason injuries and things. But I think the baseball guys go out, and they take pride in winning the game and playing a good game for people. I like that about baseball. So it is a good game. But, though they don't have Roseanne Barr singing the national anthem, I'm fine with it.
All right. So our topic today, which we'll get to right after this commercial break, and the topic is, who are the top 10 football players, no matter what position, in the history of the NFL? Now, Lucas is going to pick probably 10 stupid. I mean, he may pick Billie Jean King or Bobby Riggs if you've listened to the past. I think that's very possible. Me and Steve are hoping he doesn't embarrass himself today, but we really can't get
I'm hoping I don't embarrass myself. I'm hoping I don't, because I know, Mike, you're a football aficionado. I know that you know more about the football, and I give you credit. You do. You know more about football than the rest of us. You're going to have a better insight into it. But I'm going to tell you what, this was the hardest list I ever had to put together, because I started going through the great players of all time and tried to pick 10. And, there's 3 or 4 core players that we're all going to have on our list at some place. I know. But other than that, oh, my gosh, how far back do you want to go? How do you want to compare stats versus equipment versus technique? This is going to be fun one to do, just because I'm going to appreciate everybody's list, because I guarantee you nobody's going to miss a great player. There's a lot more than 10 great players in the NFL.
Yep. All right, so we will be back right after this commercial from PEMF, and here we go. Replenishing Technologies helps athletes of all levels train, recover, and perform at their absolute best. We do this by offering the PEMF 120, the world's leading pulsed electromagnetic field therapy device. Workouts, injury, and stress cause cells to lose their natural power. PEMF works like a battery charger, helping cells regain the power needed to dump toxins, take in oxygen and nutrients, and repair. 95% of athletes report less pain, increased range of motion, more energy, and they simply feel better after using PEMF 120. If you'd like to count yourself among that group, contact us at www.replenishingtechnologiesinc.com. All right, guys, we're back on the Really True Sports Network, Survive and Advance. I'm Mike Goodpaster with Steve Risley and Lukas Weese. Our topic today is who is the greatest football player of all time? And we're going to go with the top 10, and we do realize what we say really doesn't matter because everybody has their own opinions, and none of this can be proven. But we're going to start off with Lukas at number 10.
Hey, before Lucas, for you, can I make one announcement here? I have a pool guy coming to put a light in our pool.
Oh,
if I go mute, it's like if you don't want to listen to my dog's bark when the pool guy knocks on the door and shows up, go back. So I will be on. So I just don't want my dogs barking in the show, but they will bark when the pool guy comes to put the light in. So I'll mute when he does, but I'll still be on the air. So don't think I'm going away.
According to how this goes, I mean, we may just have your dogs on from now on instead of Lukas, is according to what Lukas picks. Lukas, number 10.
All right, so I got a tie for number 10.
So do I.
I got a tie for number 10, and it's between Peyton Manning and Johnny Unitas, two former Colts who were truly one of the greats of the game. Peyton Manning, of course, holds many NFL records, including passing yards.
Both home playoff losses by a quarterback, too.
Okay, let me finish, Mike. Let me finish. I let you finish.
I didn't even say anything yet.
AP MVP awards with 5, Pro Bowl appearances 14 4,000-yard passing seasons, and the two-time Super Bowl winner. I also got Johnny Unitas in there because, look, he's Johnny U. He's one of the all-time greats. He had the record for consecutive games with a touchdown pass or more, and that was for a long time, and that was recently broken by Drew Brees in 2012. So I got them at number 10. Not hot. They're not, up there to me in the, with the Montanas and the Bradys, but they're in my number 10 spot. They're pretty, to me, at number 10.
All right. So my problem with that is this: when I did this list, I only have one quarterback in my list.
I think I only do 2. Yeah, I think I've only got one quarterback. No, I got 2. Sure. I got maybe 2. One I'm waffling on right now, but neither one of those 2.
Yeah, but they're quarterbacks.
So,
I mean, Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
You couldn't have put him.
Neither one of them are top 10.
Yeah, you couldn't have put Peyton Manning anywhere else and done.
No, I would. Peyton Manning's not one of the top 10 football players. Neither one. They're both great quarterbacks.
He's barely
but they're not in the
top
10
quarterback. But
right, I agree with you entirely. I'm with you on that one entirely.
All right,
no way.
Oh,
all right.
So wait a second, Lucas. So what about
Lucas? You're going by the most popular players.
What about Peyton Manning makes him one of the 10 greatest football players that ever lived? You gave me stats. You gave me nothing else.
I agree.
You didn't give me this unbelievable, he won 4 Super Bowls or 5 Super Bowls. What I could give you is this. I'm pretty sure he lost more home playoff games than any quarterback that ever lived. It's like Brett Favre.
I know. I sat
through
most of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It doesn't matter to me what you do in the regular season. Drew Brees is probably going to end with better numbers than about anybody that ever lived. But you're not going to take Drew Brees over Joe Montana or Tom Brady to win a big game. And to me, a great football player, this is the thing. The 10 guys on my list are guys that, when they played in a championship game, did something amazing. Peyton Manning never had a Super Bowl where he did something amazing. I mean, let's face it, his first Super Bowl against the Bears, it was against the Bears, number 1. And Rex Grossman.
One game, Mike. It's one game.
Yeah, it's the one game that matters. Because the thing that separates, you're going to talk over me? You gave me crap. You said you'd never talk over me. You lied. But what I got is this. Once again, Steve's talked about it before. We do an Indiana basketball show when it gets time for the Big Ten tournament or time for the NCAA tournament. The big question is what happens in one and done. One and done is what separates all-time greats. The guys.
I agree.
I mean, one and done is it. I mean, when your entire football season comes down to one game and predominantly you've lost that game, I don't see how you can put him in the top 10. And, we're sitting here, and I've seen guys before say, well, Charles Haley's the greatest player because he won 6 Super Bowls. No. It's a different position.
I disagree with
Quarterback is a position that is defined by winning. Dan Marino was one of the greatest quarterbacks you'll ever see, but he couldn't win when it mattered.
Couldn't win.
Yeah,
right.
So I think to put...
Not on anybody's list.
I think to put Peyton Manning and Johnny Unitas air, I think is nuts. Johnny Unitas played big in some big games before. You can't show me one Super Bowl where Peyton Manning made the difference in that game. I mean, the only thing that kept the game against the Bears close was kicking off the Devin.
Was the rain.
He threw 2
picks.
picks.
Yeah, the kickoff of
Yeah. And if you look at his Super Bowl when he beat Carolina, he fumbled 4 times and he threw 2 interceptions. So it's not like he was why they won the game. He's why the game was close. Why they won the game was their defense was great. And
but he put them in a position to get there. That's all I'm saying.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
He came back.
No, he didn't. He did not put him in position to win there because of this. Hold on.
We don't want to turn this.
We
don't want to turn this in. Wait. We don't want to turn this into a 4-hour show.
Whatever.
Just a couple ground rules. Have your debate. No, have your debate. But let's kind of leave out the stats.
Got them to the playoffs.
Let's knock off the stats and proving why, unless there's a question. I think.
No, I
Mike,
think we
you go ahead
only
and finish
do
your
this
point,
when somebody
but you're
does
right.
something stupid. And this is the thing.
Okay.
I mean, Brock Osweiler won them like 5 straight games, or they never would have been in that position. To say Peyton Manning got them there, Peyton Manning in those 3 playoff games, including the Super Bowl, threw for like 580 yards total. Defense.
He wasn't even MVP of the game.
No. So, Steve, what's your number 10?
My number 10, I think you're going to like this, Mike. I went with my number 10, I think for all the right reasons, Anthony Munoz. This guy was an incredible all-time offensive lineman, often considered the best offensive lineman in the history of football. Had a really tough time in his college career with injuries and came back in 12 seasons with the Bengals, only missed 3 games because of injuries. Caught 7 passes for 18 yards, 4 touchdowns as a tackle. I think he deservedly belongs in the top 10 of greatest football players of all time. Nobody, he protected the quarterback better than anybody's ever played the game. Debate?
Lucas?
Good call, Steve.
All right. I've got a tie at 10 between Munoz and Dick Butkus. I think Butkus was a great player. I had I think a couple linebackers ahead of him on this list because to me linebacker is one of the toughest positions to play. I mean, if you watch him run downhill, blow up pulling guards, and bust a fullback, I mean, he was an exceptional athlete. The bad thing for him is him and Gale Sayers got to the Bears right after the Bears had won their last NFL championship in 1963.
Right.
And you talk about Munoz. Munoz is a guy I could make a case for at number 1. I mean, I think
I could too. Yeah.
He's the only guy that when you say he is the greatest at his position, nobody argues with him.
Nobody argues with you. You guys didn't argue at all. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like Johnny Bench. Nobody ever argues who the greatest catcher of all time is because you can't, because you look like an idiot if you do. And I mean, Anthony Munoz was a guy that went, I think his first 3 seasons with just 1 holding call. I think he had 1 false start in his first 5 years. And the thing people forget, athletically, he's one of the greatest athletes that ever lived. I mean, Anthony Munoz at USC played for Ron Dado, won a couple College World Series. He played pitcher, shortstop, and third base. Could you imagine a man playing Division I college baseball on the best team in the country, playing shortstop and third base at 6'7", 270 pounds? But
Mike, I feel like you. I could have put him at number 1. It's just that the 9 people ahead of him are just in more glamorous positions, which probably play into your mindset. But I think he is one of the greatest football players ever to play in the NFL, bar none.
Well, see, my problem is I would be told that it was because I was a Bengals fan. So that's why I just put him in.
And I didn't pick him because you're a Bengals. I know you are, but he's just great. I mean, he's the yardstick by which everybody else on an offensive line is measured by. And that makes you the greatest. When you're the yardstick, when you're, when you have a golden ring, and that's what everybody's trying to get to, it's Anthony Munoz. And you're right, nobody debates you on that one. There was no debate from either one of you on my number 10 pick.
Well, no,
and I could have
mine too.
I could have put him. I could have put him higher.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would think this in your top 10 list, almost every one of these guys should have a debate to be number one, which is the only reason that I disagreed with you, Lucas. Steve, number 9.
Number 9, I had Don Hudson, receiver for the Packers. I just think this guy, in the era he played in, the sure-footedness, his hands, his crucial catches and big plays in the Packer era when they were dominating the NFL, and the go-to guy for the Packers time and time again. Of all the receivers, he was a no-nonsense player. He just got his job done. He did it better than anybody that played the game at his time. There are more flashy receivers out there now, bar none. But I think Don Hudson is the epitome of what a great quarterback would want to be throwing to every day, and know that guy's going to catch whatever I throw to him. He's not going to make mistakes. He's not going to jump offside. He's not going to miss his routes. And, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's a Packer legend. And he was my number 9 pick.
All right. I'll talk about him later. I got him much higher than that.
Okay. Yeah.
My number 9 is Dick Night Train Lane, defensive back
Good
for
call.
the Rams and the Lions, Cardinals. Yeah. The thing about him is he set the interception record that still stands today at 14. In a league where the ball wasn't thrown as much. But
right.
It was also a league where, in 1952, most people were just playing man. And on top of that, 1952, when he had 14, which is still the interception record 60 years later, he was a rookie. When you look at his career, he was also 6'1", 200 pounds, which is today would be big for a cornerback. 7-time Pro Bowler. He's on the NFL's 75th anniversary team, the 1950s All-Decade team. In 157 games, he had 68 interceptions. The thing that's impressive, the 68 interceptions, he's got 1,207 return yards and 6 touchdowns. I mean, right there, if a receiver comes out and catches 68 passes for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns, he's making a lot of money today. So my number 9 is Dick Night Train Lane. Lucas?
So I got the Minister of Defense, Reggie White. Reggie White dominated the line of scrimmage throughout his 15-year career, and he also played well into his 30s. I mean, this is someone who, against the running game, he possessed both the strength to shed blockers, but also the speed to chase down ball carriers. I mean, he has 2 NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards when he led the league with 21 and 18 sacks in 1987 and 1998, respectively. By the time he retired, he had 198 sacks. He made 13 consecutive Pro Bowl appearances and won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. This is one of the all-time best defensive ends, in my opinion. That's why I got him there at number 9.
All right. I completely disagree because I got him at number 8. So I'll start with mine. The thing that's impressive to Reggie White is this. Reggie White's a guy that as soon as he got to the Packers, they almost become a Super Bowl team overnight. People give Brett Favre all this credit, but without Reggie White ever getting there, the Packers never go to a Super Bowl. Because the other thing Reggie White gave them was the fact that since Reggie went there, they were able to get other free agents to put on that defense also. And, I mean, Reggie White put that Packer team over the top. And if you look at him before that, the Eagles' defense of 1991, I believe it was, one of the greatest defenses of all time, him and Jerome Brown, coached by Buddy Ryan. So, yeah, I agree with you. I just got him a little bit higher. Steve, number 8.
Number 8, I had Butkus at number 8. And I know there are probably linebackers who are more technically better than Butkus, but Butkus was just a gritty. He bore out a reputation as the most feared player. It's like in his era, and even though he wasn't on the glory years of the Bears, he just seemed to me to come across as the player nobody ever wanted to get hit by. And I know Lambert and Lawrence Taylor, who actually have Lawrence Taylor higher on my list, but Lambert, there are other guys who were just as proficient as he was, probably more proficient, but Butkus just seemed to be the most feared player in the game, and I think he influenced the game that way. And, he just, every game by the second series for the other team, he had blood and mud all over his body. And he played that way for the entire game. And I just know when I was growing up, and I thought, man, if I ever play football at that level, I don't ever want to get hit by that man because I guarantee you it's going to hurt. So I had him at number 8.
All right, Lucas, you're number 8.
So I got Emmitt Smith at number 8.
All right, we're going to have to argue again, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, in my opinion, look, you got Emmitt Smith playing in the same era as a Barry Sanders. Personally, I think I would rather have Emmitt Smith on my team than Barry Sanders. And look, I mean, I'm going to go back to what he's done throughout his career. He was the engine, in my opinion, behind that Dallas Cowboys offense. Of course, they had Troy Aikman, a Hall of Fame quarterback. Of course, they had Michael Irvin, Hall of Fame wide receiver. But it was Emmitt Smith. He is that ground-pound, physical running back who, in my opinion, warrants him in this spot. Is he as great as, Jim Brown, Walter Payton? Absolutely not. But if you look at the records, he leads in rushing yards, over 18,000, has over 164 touchdowns, which is an NFL record, most rushing attempts. In the year he won one of his Super Bowls, he also won the league MVP, Super Bowl MVP, and Offensive Player of the Year, which has never been done before by a running back. So I like Emmitt Smith. I know he played in the same year as Barry Sanders, but Barry Sanders, he is the most elusive running back, but he played for the sorry Detroit Lions, who I don't think will ever win a championship. So I just think Emmitt, for me, number 8, was a great running back, played on a great team, and he was a critical part of that team.
Now, I will do this. I completely agree. I would want Emmitt Smith over Barry Sanders, too. And the difference is this. Emmitt Smith blocked. Emmitt Smith caught the ball out of the backfield. Emmitt Smith was a great runner. He was a great – and the thing that people forget about Emmitt Smith is the year after the Cowboys beat the Bills in their first Super Bowl win, Emmitt Smith held out the first 2 games of the season. The Cowboys lost both of those games. He came back, and I think they lose 1 game the rest of the year. So I think the offensive line was the main ingredient that made that team great. But that does not take away from how good Emmitt Smith was. Now, I don't have Emmitt Smith in my top 10. I don't even think Emmitt Smith's the greatest Cowboys running back of all time. I'll take Tony Dorsett any day. Tony Dorsett was on a team that had some huge names. And Dorsett's a guy, if you remember, the Cowboys had made it to Super Bowl 10 as a wild card. 76, I think, to get upset early in the playoffs by the Rams. 77, they get Tony Dorsett, and they immediately go to 2 Super Bowls. But, yeah, I don't really have a problem with the pick, to tell you the truth. I think he's one of the greatest running backs of all time. I just didn't want to put that many running backs in there. My number 7 is Philadelphia Eagles, Concrete Charlie Bednarik. And the reason I have Bednarik over top of Dick Butkus is the fact that Bednarik from 1949 to 1960, which is 48 to 60. 49. I think it was 49. I'm going off memory. I don't Google like you guys. But 1949, as a rookie, he started at center and linebacker. The Eagles won the World Championship. His last year, 1960, he started at linebacker and center, and the Eagles beat Vince Lombardi in Lombardi's only loss in the championship game. He's best known in 1960 for knocking out Frank Gifford of the New York Giants.
Gifford, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everybody would like to have a shot to knock out Frank Gifford, especially his former wives, I think. But when you look at this guy, he's a guy who's all-decade team, all 75th anniversary team, Eagles Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame, Maxwell Award in 1948 as a college player is the best defensive player in college football, 8-time Pro Bowler, 10-time first-team All-Pro. I put him there just because I think playing center may be the most difficult position in the NFL, and linebacker's not easy either, and he was playing every down. Steve, number 7?
Let me say about Bednarik, I had him right alongside Butkus. I could have picked either one of those two as the linebacker for the very same reason you said. I just went with Butkus because Butkus was probably more in my era, and I saw him play more than I saw Bednarik play. I never saw Bednarik play, but in reading about him and looking at his fearsome stats, he was very much equivalent to Butkus in terms of he was the Butkus of his day.
Except he played center too. That's why I.
Yeah, he played both ways, right? Yeah, and that's a good call, and I applaud you on that call because I had Bednarik written right down next to Butkus as either I can flip either one and go either way and be happy with my choice. Number 7 for me was Emmitt Smith. And here's the difference between, to me, for Tony Dorsett and Emmitt Smith. Well, first off, Emmitt Smith won Dancing with the Stars, so that gives him an edge right there. All right. So that because he's got the mirror ball. But it just, the problem I had with Dorsett was that there were just many times I watched games where he fumbled in crucial situations. He lost the ball.
Really?
He just, and not terribly bad, just enough times that Emmitt didn't do. Emmitt was 100% get it done right, virtually every time he touched the football. Dorsett was get it done right 98% of the time he touched the football. When I look back at both those two, and I had them both side by side, so, I want a Cowboys running back because I agree those are probably two of the greatest running backs to play, and both of them on the Cowboys. I just looked at it and said, I think in the length of his career, Emmitt made fewer mistakes than Tony did. It's not to say one's greater than the other. I just think one was a little more resilient, a little more reliable than the other, simply. And it's a coin toss between those two. But I like your comments on Tony Dorsett, but I think Emmitt was just more sure-footed along the way his entire career. So I went with him at number 7.
All right, Lucas, number 6.
Did I do my number 7? I don't think I did my number 7.
Oh, then give me number 7.
Bobby Riggs?
Sorry about that. So I got
Jean
a tie at number 7. It'll be quick here. I got a tie between Dick Buckets and Dick Night Train Lane. I mean, you guys said some really good things. I'll just add a couple things more with Buckets. In his NFL career, he intercepted 22 passes, recovered 27 fumbles, which was a record when he retired. I mean, when you think of all the great middle linebackers that came after him, I mean, he basically, formulated that middle linebacker position. So you think of Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, Luke Kuechly, now all these guys. Dick Buckets was the first real true, in my opinion, effective middle linebacker. So I got Buckets, and of course Dick Night Train Lane. Mike, you made a lot of good points with him. I got those two to the number 7 spot.
All right, and this is something I didn't know, Steve. Emmitt Smith fumbled 61 times in his career.
Did he? But they were probably. It's funny, and that's how many did Dorsett fumble? Did you check that?
A lot more. He was like 90.
A lot more.
Both lost.
Yeah.
They both lost like 45 to 50. So that's the only thing that matters. And it doesn't matter as much as they both carried the ball. I mean, that's not
great.
That much either way.
No, and the only thing that I can say to that is, I tried to think about that, and I didn't know that number. I don't like to Google stuff. I like to just kind of think what I know about sports and look at things, and that's interesting statistic to bring out.
Yeah, I never would have guessed Emmitt Smith's number was that high.
Right, but it seems to me that Dorsett's fumbles were more significant to the outcome of the game than Smith's. I would have believed that Dorsett fumbled more because his fumbles were more at a crucial time, it seemed like, than Emmitt Smith's. And they both fumbled. Again, to handle the ball as much as those two did, and the yardage they gained running and the hits they took, that's actually pretty credible numbers. But it just seems, I tried to think, when did Emmitt Smith ever fumble on a crucial play? But he obviously fumbled 51 times.
I don't remember Dorsett doing it either. But here's the thing that's interesting. Dorsett, 90 fumbles. Franco Harris, 90 fumbles. Walter Payton, 86. I never would have thought that. The all-time fumble leader is Brett Favre with 166.
Oh, Brett Favre fumbled just about every. Brett Favre has fumbled just about everything in his life.
Yeah. Yeah. He's overrated.
We're still counting. Yeah, we're still counting his fumbles.
All right, Lucas, number 6.
So number 6, I got Joe Montana. Obviously, he won college national championship with Notre Dame. Started his NFL career with San Fran. Well, a member of the 49ers, we all know he won 4 Super Bowls, won 3 Super Bowl MVPs, holds many Super Bowl records for most passes without an interception, 122 in 4 games, and, of course, the all-time highest quarterback rating of 127.8. I mean, Joe Montana, to me, one of his real claim to fame is he helped his team's 32 fourth quarter come from behind victory. He got the nickname Joe Cool for a reason. I like him at number 6. He's an all-time great quarterback, and he was a lot of fun to watch. For me, from the highlight when he was a member of the San Francisco 49ers.
All right. I don't disagree. I don't have him in my top 10 because I really didn't want to put too many quarterbacks in here. I only got one in. My Joe Montana comparison to Peyton Manning is this. Super Bowl 23, he had to go 92 yards in 3 minutes against a really good Bengals defense. He did it in 1. Peyton Manning had the ball against a decent Saints defense in Super Bowl 44, and he threw a pick 6. To me, that's why Peyton Manning shouldn't be at 10, especially if you got Montana at 6. Because Montana, you had the catch, you had Super Bowl 23, and I think people forget this. The catch here, Super Bowl 16, he beats the Cowboys in a close game. He beats the Bengals in a close game. But the thing that's amazing about that is he was like the second leading rusher on that team. That team's leading rusher was Earl Cooper, who ran for 400 yards. So when people say, he always had the best players, there was no Jerry Rice on that team. There was no Wendell Tyler or Roger Craig. He was doing it with Earl Cooper, Bill Ring in the backfield, and his best receiver was Dwight Clark, who was really good, but he wasn't Jerry Rice. So, that team won because he was that great. Because if you match up that Bengals team and 49ers team position for position, the Bengals were the better team. The difference was Kenny Anderson is a great quarterback. Joe Montana's a legend. Steve, number 6.
I'm going to go a little, and I like your comments, and I actually have Montana higher than that. But my number 6 pick, again, and you alluded to this earlier, the most difficult position to play, I think, in the NFL is center. And I went with Jim Otto. So I just thought as a center, he anchored the offensive line for the Raiders for so many years. He some of the greatest running backs ran behind him. And I just think he was a stalwart player, never made mistakes, and just always got his job done. I think it's an unheralded position, but I think it is a difficult position. But I think you can't just keep getting wrapped up in catches, rushing, and throwing. You got to look at some of these guys that played in the trenches. And I generally thought Munoz and Otto were clearly the 2 best offensive linemen ever to play football.
Really?
And I had to put him in the top 10. Yeah, I think without a great center, nothing starts. A great center starts and controls the offensive line. The left tackle protects your quarterback, but that center's got to go left and right every time, and he's got a job to do before he even starts his blocking assignments.
I think Otto is a great center, but I think Mike Webster was better.
And that's true. Yeah, you can go with Webster. I just went with Otto just because I think he played on great teams. He played on the Raiders championship teams. Played with a lot of different running backs, made a lot of different running backs, very good running backs, better than they might have been without him in front of them. And his consistency of play along the time. But Mike Webster definitely is another player you could throw in here. But I just think it all starts with him. Offensive plays don't start without the center. And just I played quarterback, for 4 years in high school. And I know that snap exchange is taken so for granted. Mike, you're a quarterback coach. You know too. I'm sure one of the first things you do is teach quarterbacks how to take the snap and, work with people and getting that cadence down and being able to guide an offensive line throughout the process. And I think Otto was the master at it. So that was my number 6 pick.
If I was going to pick a second offensive lineman, it would be John Hanna because to me, there's a debate with Otto.
Yeah.
I don't debate your top 10 with him because he was a great football player, huge impact on some great teams.
Right.
But John Hanna would be my second offensive lineman after Munoz because I think when you talk guards, there's no doubt the greatest guard of all time was John Hanna. Just like there's no doubt the greatest tackle of all time was Anthony Munoz. It is one time I should have Googled my list, or I probably would have put John Hanna on it. All right, did you both do number 6?
I did number 6.
Did you do 6, Lucas?
No, yes, it's you, Mike. I only think you've done number 6.
My number 6 is Walter Payton. He is the second highest running back on my list. And the thing about Walter Payton, same thing we talked about Emmitt Smith, I only think it was even more. Emmitt Smith actually started a game against the New Orleans Saints at quarterback and won the game.
I remember that, yeah.
I know it was the Saints. He only threw like 9 passes, but Walter Payton could do everything. You could have put Walter Payton at safety on defense, and he'd have probably been the best player on the field. So my number 6 is Walter Payton. That brings us to Lucas.
Well, let me just say about Walter Payton, I did not put him on my list only simply because I put Emmett over him only because Walter never won a championship. And maybe it's not all his fault.
Yeah, he won 85.
No, they won the 85 Bears. Yeah, the 85 Bears did, yeah. But it was his overall winning percentage with the Bears during his career was not what Emmett's was. And so, therefore,
yeah, but I don't think
I liked Walter Payton.
I don't think you can judge a
you can't
football player that's a
on
running
right.
back by that. I think a quarterback can be judged by that. But a running back,
I mean,
O.J. Simpson is one of the 2 or 3 greatest running backs in NFL history. If you watch the
probably
film,
the greatest.
There's no doubt about that. And he never won a playoff game. He only got to one playoff game in 1974 when they lost to the Steelers 33-14. All right, where are we at? Steve, 5.
Number 5, I started going a little defense here. Number 5, I got Lawrence Taylor. I just think the way he played and revolutionized the position of linebacker by being able to move outside and guard receivers better than any other linebacker and get out there and hit downfield and intimidate the game, not just 10 yards to the line of scrimmage, but for the entire defensive perimeter. I think Lawrence Taylor was the most versatile linebacker ever to play the game. He redefined what the linebacker position was, and everybody started changing their linebacker mentality around Lawrence Taylor.
All right, Lucas, number 5.
The number 5 I got Walter Payton. You guys obviously made some great points about him. I mean, obviously, he rushed for at least 1,200 yards in 10 of his 13 seasons in the NFL, and he was just so versatile. You're right, Mike. He could do anything at the running back position. And then the one thing I'll just comment with Walter Payton is obviously his legacy goes far beyond the game with the Walter Payton Man of the Year award that's awarded every single year at the Super Bowl. I think it's important that the NFL recognizes, its players who do a lot of great community work, and I think Walter Payton was definitely that. So, great guy. Obviously, one of the, to me, he's the second best running back in the NFL of all time. What
the hell was that? Did somebody drop lunch, Steve?
No.
Must have been Lucas again. Lucas is probably at the Iditarod Training Center, and some dogs just jumped up and knocked some plates off. My number 5 is Cleveland Browns' Jim Brown. To me, I think he may be the greatest running back of all time, but he revolutionized the game. There was nothing like him. Probably the closest thing to him was a former Cleveland Brown, Marion Motley, who played back in the 40s through the mid-50s. Jim Brown changed the game. Great athlete. I think he was 6'2", 230 pounds. The guy could play today if he was 24 years old. So that's my number 5. I'm going to jump in, and I'll go with my number 4, which is Jerry Rice. I think Jerry Rice is one of the 2 greatest wide receivers of all time. Might be the greatest. With the 49ers, Super Bowl 23, I mean, he should have been the MVP of that game. I don't remember if he was or not, but he should, because he was amazing in that game when they beat the Bengals, especially on the final drive. He made a couple huge catches. So my number 4 is Jerry Rice, Steve.
My number 4 is Jerry Rice as well. So it's same reasons. He was the most clutch receiver in the game. I mean, but I think he had the most clutch quarterback in the game thrown to him too. So
yeah, I think that a guy like Larry Fitzgerald has a case against him, Lucas.
Oh, I do. I mean, I think you could definitely make a case. I mean, I grew up with Larry Fitzgerald. He was an all-time great wide receiver. You could even argue, and he was terrific as well. I mean, I got Jerry Rice a little higher, but we'll get to that. My number 4 is Lawrence Taylor and Anthony Munoz, the guys in the trenches. Thank you. So Obviously,
hey, Mike Munoz wasn't even on his list, so we talked about him.
I know. He just added him.
I know.
He
added him after we talked about him.
That's why he's number 10 picks.
No, it was on my list.
He's waiting to see what our picks are. Go ahead.
And we should just, next time we do this, we should just make Lucas just go 1 through 10 first before we even talk.
Well, you guys started the show, so you guys had to see the price for that. Anyway, with Lawrence Taylor, I mean, he had double-digit sacks this season from 1984 through 1990, including a career high of 20.5 in 1986. An AP NFL Defensive Player of the Year, named the league's MVP. Obviously, one of the 2 defensive players in the history of the NFL that ever won an NFL MVP award. And you could make a solid case that he's the best defensive player to ever play in the NFL. You guys made a lot of great points about Nunez.
Munoz.
But whatever.
Munoz.
Don't say whatever. He's a great guy. You go on my Facebook picture and see a picture of me and him together. Go ahead.
Hey, Lucas, is it macchiato or Machado?
Machado.
Tomato. Anyway, so I got those 2 locked up. They were great trench players at my number 4.
All right, Steve, did you give us a number 4?
Before, yeah, I said Jerry Rice.
Okay. Number 3, then. Steve.
I'll go. Me, number 3?
Yeah.
I think the most proficient defensive lineman of all time, Bruce Smith, number 3.
No
200
way.
career sacks. It's playing on, not really great Bills teams.
Really? They went to 4 Super Bowls. You know that, right?
Yeah, they didn't win any.
3.
Yeah.
And didn't win any of them. So I just think that he, was the greatest defensive lineman to play the game. I mean, they're all good. You can make a list of 20 or 30 great defensive linemen. I just think with the statistics he piled up over his career, and when people were double teaming him and trying to, neutralize him on the offensive play or run away from him, I just think that he deserves the top 3 spot in terms of, guys that people didn't want to play against.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. I think it's Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Deacon Jones as defensive ends. And the reason I put Reggie White there is because Reggie White made the difference in winning a Super Bowl. But he played on some great defenses. I mean, the Bills' defenses, before they went to the Super Bowl in '88, they had a great defense. That's when Shane Conlon was still healthy, the old Penn State linebacker. So, yeah, I don't think it's a crazy pick like you usually do. Lucas, speaking of crazy picks, who you got at 3?
So I got to tie 2 receivers. To me, the 2 best receivers of all time, Jerry Rice and Don Hudson.
So what you're telling me is this. You have so many ties that your top 10 is actually like a top
20.
Yeah.
See, I just picked 10. I didn't do ties. I said, no, I got to make a choice.
You did a tie once.
No, everyone's
I picked.
Yeah, but you picked 3 ties. You can't have 3 ties. We're going to change the name of the show to the top 13 players of all time.
What tie did I pick?
It's very difficult, Mike. Like we talked about at the top of the show, it's very difficult to pick.
It's not
But
difficult.
anyway.
But go ahead.
Wow. It is. But anyway.
It's not.
Jerry Rice, led receptions, even yards, once being the leader for total yards and
Hey, quiet those Iditarod dogs back there at the Iditarod Training Center, Lucas.
Those are my dogs. They're training for the Iditarod.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just the Iditarod is on everybody's
mind.
I know.
Mike, so. He's going to talk about dogs all day.
I rather talk about dogs, but go ahead.
So, and then Don Hudson quickly, he led the league in yards in 7 separate seasons and in touchdowns in 9 seasons. He was also a talented safety on defense. He also led the NFL in interceptions in 1940. Hudson is considered to have been the first real modern receiver. He got, and people consider him, crediting him for creating many of the modern pass routes that we see today in the NFL. So I got 2 receivers at the number 3 spot. I disagree with a lot of lists online that put a receiver at number 1. I just don't think that position warrants, in my opinion, the number 1 spot because I think while these guys are very talented, they had great, in the case of Jerry Rice, they had a great quarterback, Steve Young, who could, find the routes and put him in, a good spot to catch those balls. So, I mean, I got the two best receivers ever to play at the number 3 spot.
All right. My number 3 is Lawrence Taylor. I think defensively, I think he's the greatest player to ever play the game. If you look at him, he is a guy that when he got to the Giants in '81, the Giants were terrible. They draft him. They're playing Scott Bruner at quarterback. They make the playoffs. They win a playoff game going to Philadelphia, beating the Eagles. The Eagles, if people remember, were a team that was in the Super Bowl the year before. They came up short 38-24 to the 49ers. You look at LT, though, I mean, all the way through Super Bowl 21, he played great. 25, he played great. They had maybe one of the greatest linebacker crews of all time of Carl Banks, Gary Reasons, him. You had Leonard Marshall on the defensive line. But I think Lawrence Taylor, the other thing you got to give him is this. I think that he was so great that he turned cocaine into a performance-enhancing drug.
Are we supposed to laugh at that or cry
no,
at that?
It's true. I mean, anybody else would be destroyed by it. But he turned it into a performance-enhancing drug. I mean, he took cocaine and ran with it and made it a good thing.
Yeah.
So,
that was a pretty funny statement I said, though. To cry at that or laugh at that, that was pretty good.
Yeah, because you could do
back
either.
That one.
Because that really
either, I know, yeah.
That's tell you. And the question is this: did that make him better, or would he have been even better if he'd have been clean?
Right. What it did was it tarnished the greatest defensive career in the history of the NFL. It tarnished it. I mean, to a degree. It doesn't tarnish his talent. There's no way, but it tarnished his reputation.
There's a difference. The thing that tarnished his reputation is paying 15-year-old girls to have sex with him. That tarnished his reputation. The cocaine thing, I mean, it's not like he took steroids, so you can't keep him in the Hall of Fame for it because most people are not going to say that's a performance enhancer. But Lucas, number 2.
So number 2, I got Jim Brown. No ties this time. Jim Brown is the best running back to ever play. Most valuable player 3 times, won an NFL championship with the Browns in 1964, the last time the Browns, won a championship. Led the league in rushing yards in 8 of his 9 seasons. By the time he retired, he shattered all the rushing records. He carried the ball over 2,000 times for over 12,000 yards, 106 touchdowns. He averaged 104 rushing yards per game. I mean, this guy's just incredible. And then we talked about earlier edition of the show being, arguably the greatest athlete of all time. He was considered to be the greatest, lacrosse player of all time. But for me, Jim Brown, number 2, running back then was such an important position, and he just dominated in every category. So Jim Brown, number 2.
All right, Steve.
No, Jim Brown. Yeah, Jim Brown's number 2. Same reasons. Most punishing runner ever to play the game. I think he probably hit harder than he ever got hit. I would bet, I didn't get to see him play in the prime of his career, obviously, and not old enough, even I'm not old enough for that. But, to walk away from the game at the age he did with the records he held, when he probably was just getting into the peak of his performance abilities. I mean, and I just, the film I've seen of him, it's like people flinched when he ran into him. And he didn't run away from anybody. He ran over you. And I think, bar none, the greatest running back ever played the game and arguably the greatest player ever to play the game. I just went with a different guy for number 1 for just a different reason. But I just think, he had to be fun to watch. You had to be so proud if you were a Browns fan to have a player of that caliber on your team and doing the things what we saw in film that he did at the prime of his career, and to walk away from it at 29 years old. I think if he had played another 4 or 5 years, his records would be untouchable. They'd be in the Nolan Ryan era, where nobody's ever going to touch Nolan Ryan's strikeout record. Nobody will play long enough or can do what Nolan Ryan did. And I think Brown would have gotten to that status, that he would be the yardstick by which all the running backs were measured forever. He still is, in my book. So good call, Lucas.
Thank you.
All right. My number 2 is Don Hudson. I mean, the guy caught 99 touchdown passes at a time where There weren't 99 touchdown passes thrown in a 5-year period in the NFL.
Yeah.
The other thing about him is he revolutionized the game. And what people forget here is the schemes, the coverage schemes, you didn't have any zone. But what you did have were defenders that were allowed to basically grab and harass you the entire time. He got to the Packers. His quarterback there was Arnie Hebner. Blood McNally was also on that team. They were a great team. But if you look at his numbers, 488 receptions, 8,000 yards, 16.4 yards per reception, 99 receiving touchdowns. But the reason I list him higher than Jerry Rice here is he also intercepted 30 passes, which is pretty amazing. That's for his career, 3 a year. The other thing about him was this. He was a 2-time most valuable player. 8 times NFL reception leader, 8-time NFL receiving yards leader, 9 times NFL receiving touchdown leader, and he led the NFL in interceptions once. A member of the all-decade team in the 1930s and the 75th anniversary team. All right, guys, so we are to number 1. Don't screw it up because I think there's only one.
Look, can I just add one thing? Can I just add one thing about Don Hudson? If I was picking this player, I would say Don Hudson might be the most underrated player, great player of all time in football.
Well, he's underrated by people who don't know anything.
Exactly. People don't know him, but if they look up his stats and watch film and saw how this guy revolutionized the game, I think you made a good call putting him number 2. I just didn't put him at number 2 simply because I thought nobody really knew of Don Hudson. But I definitely immediately, when I first thought of this, before I looked anything up, I said, "Who's my top 10?" Hudson was already on that list at that point, and I think for everything you said, he is by far the most underrated player, simply because he played in an era when we didn't have the coverage we have today. But that's a good call at number 2. I don't dispute that call at number 2 at all.
All right, Steve, number 1.
I got Joe Montana.
Jesus.
And here's why.
Right.
No, here's why.
Okay.
I think there are other quarterbacks who have better stats, have made flashier plays, bigger plays, won more championships. But when I think of clutch and getting the job done when the opportunity presented itself to somebody and to capitalize on the opportunities presented it to him, I mean, I looked at Elway, I looked at Brady, I looked at Bart Starr, I looked at Roger Staubach, and I think we all are probably going to have a quarterback at number 1. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I just think that if I was building a team today to make the final drive to win the Super Bowl, in their prime, I would put Joe Montana behind the center because I don't think he's the flashiest guy. He doesn't have the strongest arm. I just think Joe outthunk everybody. He outsmarted everybody. He outwitted everybody. He outplayed everybody. And I think better than any quarterback, he found ways to win games. And I know Brady's probably going to be there because I haven't heard Brady mentioned by a lot of you guys yet. And you have to look at the team and the coaching and everything that went with Brady. And obviously Bill Walsh was a master at the West Coast offense, but he executed flawlessly in every crunch situation he ever played in. And I just think if I'm building a franchise, like I said, to make that final drive, I want Joe Montana in his prime behind center, and I'm very confident it will get done.
All right, Lucas, number 1.
Steve, I have a lot of respect for that pick. I mean, it's truly, look, Joe's one of the best in the game. And to me, I would have gone with Joe at number 1, but there was one game that, to me, turned the table and why I think Tom Brady's number 1. Look, Tom Brady had 5 Super Bowls, and to me, in all those 5 Super Bowls, sure there were other things, but he was, he was instrumental in those fourth quarter comebacks. I'll get to that a little bit later, but I mean, Tom Brady, of course, was drafted in the 6th round. He was a wiry guy from the University of Michigan. I don't know if both of you saw him run the combine. It was the most awkward thing you'll ever see. He comes in for Drew Bledsoe in 2002, and the rest, of course, is history. Brady, 16 seasons as a starter. He's quarterback the Patriots to 8 Super Bowl appearances, the most of any player in history. He's honored with 4 Super Bowl MVP awards. He's won the league MVP 3 times, the most recently being last season at the age of 40 years old. Brady's, of course, 4th all-time in total career passing yards. But here's a guy who's 27-10 in the postseason, winning more playoff games than any other quarterback. Todd, since from 2001 to 2017, has played 12 AFC championship games, including 7 in a row from 2011 to 2017, and they've won 8 of them. I mean, this is the team that I've grown up watching as the NFL dynasty. They're the team that I dislike because they just win so much, but Tom Brady is that. He has 42 fourth-quarter comebacks, 53 game-winning drives. I'll just highlight a couple here just for the sake of time. Super Bowl 49, Brady completed they're down 10 points to the Seahawks in the fourth quarter. Brady completed 13 of 15 passes for 120.
All right, we've all lived his career. We've all watched his career on TV. We got your point. We got your point.
No, but to me, what I'll just say.
But here's my argument with Brady.
Can I please just finish my point here? Can I please just finish my point? Thanks.
We all know your point.
51, Super Bowl 51 was the game in my mind when they came back from 28-3 down and won that game. That was the game to me that turned the tide to give Tom Brady the number 1 spot over Joe Montana. They're 2 of the all-time greats. But I got Tom Brady in the number 1 spot.
All right.
Before we go on, before we get your dissertation, just say this.
I don't have a dissertation about Tom Brady because I think you're both completely off base with your picks.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. You're entitled to your right. Opinions are like assholes. We all have one. They're all shitty.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Cleaner.
Yeah, well, yeah, because your dogs. Oh, I'm not going to go there.
You're the one with the dogs barking. My dogs are quiet and being good.
Because you're in your bathroom cleaning out your toilets.
No, they're not. They're on the bed.
All right, Mike. What's your top?
Here's the point. I don't even have Jim Brady in my top 10 because I think throughout his career, his winning career, where the legacy was formed, he was surrounded with so much more talent.
No, he wasn't.
He was. He had great receivers.
Yeah, he had great receivers. Who were his great receivers? When he beat the Eagles in Super Bowl 39, his best receiver was also a starting cornerback on that team in Troy Brown.
Yeah, well, he had a great coach who mastered his abilities and coached that team. And I think that Belichick probably should be. Montana, I think, like I said, I just picked Montana. He wasn't the most proficient quarterback. He simply got the job done every time with, I think, lesser talent than what Brady had available to him.
Lesser talent? Wait a second, Steve. Yeah. Let's look. Name me the great offensive players that were around Tom Brady when he won Super Bowls.
I don't know.
But when
I just look at Brady. I look at Brady as a great quarterback on a great franchise, a long-time franchise.
The 49ers were good for another 6 years, at least another decade after Joe Montana left. They won Super Bowls after he
because they brought Steve Young in, who probably somebody should be on the list as well. He may be a better quarterback than Montana was, actually.
No, he wasn't. But
he wasn't as clutch. Anyway, all right, that's my point.
All right, my number one.
But he's the obvious pick. Brady's the obvious pick. He's going to be everybody's obvious pick.
He's not mine.
I just think the people that pick him are just looking at the whole process and the packaging involved around Tom Brady.
Did I have Brady on my list? I don't think I do, so I don't think you're talking about me. My number one is the man that's by far the greatest football player that ever lived, Sammy Ball. Sammy Ball was maybe the greatest quarterback in NFL history. I mean, he's throwing a bigger ball. But to think about this, Ball had a season in 1943 in which he led the NFL in passing, punting, and his average was 45.9, which I think is still an NFL record, and interceptions 11. He was the best punter in the league, the best quarterback in the league, and the best defensive back in the league. That season, he had one game where he threw 4 touchdown passes and intercepted 4 passes in a 42-20 win over Detroit. You also go up, you talk about clutch. Championship game, 1942, ball and the Redskins go 10-1. The same season, the Bears went 11-0 and outscored their opponents 376-84. In the 1942 championship game, Ball threw a touchdown pass and intercepted 2 passes in what is basically the Super Bowl, plus with a 14-6 lead with a minute left in the game, kicking from his own end zone. And it wasn't even a punt. It was an 85-yard quick kick. Washington wins the game 14-6. So I think when you look at this guy, you look at it 6 times All-Pro, the NFL interception leader in 43, the punting leader on 3 different occasions, the 75th anniversary all-time team, the 1940s all-decade team, threw for 22,000 yards at a time when that was unheard of. But the thing that's amazing, he intercepted 31 passes. His punting average for his career, which is a record that still stands, is 45.1 on 338 punts. This is a guy that on offense would get you in the end zone. If he didn't, he'd punt the ball 45 yards, go on defense, and intercept it. I don't think there has been anybody that ever lived that had an effect on a football team and a football game or a football league that he had. And the way things are today, it'll never happen again. So I think Sammy Ball, for the rest of football, is the greatest football player that ever lived.
Well said.
Lucas?
Couldn't disagree with you one bit.
I agree with you. I think it's good that each of us, for different reasons, had a quarterback at the top, because I think at the end of the day, the quarterbacks are, they're the captain of the team,
But see, I don't think I had a quarterback at the top. I have a football player at the top.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, that's fair. I mean, but I mean, there's only, I think for me, maybe this is just a little bit of recency bias kicking in, but the game is a lot more physical now. It's a lot tougher now than it was back then. And not
a lot tougher now than it was back then? Are you out of your mind?
You take away, Tom Brady right now. If I have one game on the line,
Sammy Ball played without a face mask. You think Tom Brady could do that against the 1943 original Monsters?
The game's a lot more tougher now, Mike.
No, Jesus, really? The game's a lot more tougher now. The game's a lot more tougher now than it was in 1935.
For sure it is.
Really? 1935, you could hit somebody, you could gouge their eyes out. And don't give me that crap. There's hardly anybody born today that could play football in the 1930s and 40s before there were face masks. They played with leather helmets. And if you watch the game, you could tackle somebody, they could get up and still run. You had to hold them on the ground to get them down. And the ball was much bigger back then. So the fact that he's punting a ball that is, a lot different, a lot bigger, and throwing a ball that's a lot bigger and a lot heavier is amazing that he still holds the punting record. But to say that guys today are as tough as they were in 1970 or 1950 or 1930 is nuts. When Sammy Ball played, they had to have jobs on top of it, but they practiced every day, and they hit each other. And, if somebody hit Sammy Ball, and I think it was the I'm not sure here, it might have been 47 NFL championship game, got knocked out of the game with a concussion, came back in and intercepted a pass. Today he wouldn't be allowed back in, and he shouldn't be. But you can't tell me that football is not tougher than the football today, where you're not even allowed to tackle each other in practice. And if you hit somebody in the head, you get penalized. There's no way that is tougher than guys that fought in World War II coming home playing basically without helmets, without face masks. You cannot tell me that, Lucas.
It's a different game now than it was in the 40s.
I know,
mean,
it's a lot softer.
Bill, yeah, okay. But, again, I think, your parameters, and I respect everyone's opinion here. I respect your opinion taking Sammy Ball. I think your parameters for what you consider to be the great football player is someone who can play multiple positions really effectively.
Yeah.
In today's game, that's very rare to see nowadays.
Because they want it, because nobody's tough enough to do it.
And Tom Brady, you got someone in Tom Brady who, to me, he's, right now in terms of clutchness, he's the all-time great clutch, I would say. We should do, the top 10 great clutch athletes. He'd be up there. And look at the games where he was the instrumental part, and he couldn't go out there and,
All right, let me tell you this. I think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback that ever lived, Lucas. But I can tell you this. There is nobody in the world that would scare me in the last 2 minutes if I'm coaching a defense in the Super Bowl than Joe Montana. Because Joe Montana never failed.
Oh, I disagree.
Then you're wrong. Because you know what?
I disagree. Because I can make a case that Tom Brady could have won all 8 Super Bowls.
Yeah, he could have, but he didn't. So if he's clutch, wouldn't he have?
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault. It's not his fault. He fumbled the ball in this last Super Bowl. You keep 2 hands on the ball. Be a man. Sammy Ball would have held onto the ball because he's not a little girl.
Because Bill Belichick didn't do a great job with the Patriots defense.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. We're going to blame the defense.
That's the reason why
he had the ball in his hands with a chance to drive down and tie the game, and he failed. Tell me a case in the Super Bowl where Joe Montana failed.
All I'm trying to say is, Mike.
Tell me one. Just tell me one. Tell me one, or just say, I'm sorry, Mike, it never happened.
No, what I'm saying
because
is
it never happened.
If the defense had played better in that Super Bowl with the Eagles, Tom Brady had 500 yards, Mike.
Yeah.
What's
that matter? When it was time, when the game mattered. Hold on. This is what you don't get. You bring up Peyton Manning, and you say, well, in the regular season, he's great. So that makes him great. And then my point was, well, if you lose at the end, it doesn't matter. So I can tell you this. If a quarterback comes out and throws for 1,000 yards and scores 100 points, but the other team's got 101, and the quarterback's got the ball with 3 minutes left and he has to go 60 yards to win the game, it's his fault. He lost the game.
Belichick did not do
Bill
his
Belichick
job.
is the greatest defensive coordinator of all time.
He didn't do his job that day.
He didn't do his job that day. Neither did Tom Brady. Because if Tom Brady does his job, how about this? In Super Bowl, 36, the New England Patriots were held to 24 points. Now, out of those 24 points, 10 of them were scored by the defense, Lucas. So are we going to say that if it wasn't for the defense, Tom Brady would have never won that Super Bowl? Yeah, because it's true. You had the pick six. They won that game.
A whole game is ebbs and flows. The first Super Bowl Tom Brady ever won, he drove it down to send up Adam Vinatieri.
Yeah, so if he would have done something sooner, they had a 17-3 lead, and he pissed it away. The only reason he had to go down and score at the end is because he did nothing in the second half of that game. The defense won him that game, Lucas. All I'm telling you is this. If you're going to take credit for Tom Brady because he didn't lose this game, the defense did, well, then the first Super Bowl he won, he didn't win it. The defense won it.
He drove down the field to set up Adam Vinatieri.
He drove down the field. Okay, good for him. All right, this is the thing.
That's clutch.
That's clutch. Yeah, and it's not clutch to fumble the ball with 2 minutes left in the Super Bowl and a chance to win the game.
It's one time, Mike. It's one time.
Okay, now, Lucas, so you get to listen? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. How about this? Do you remember when he missed a 2-point conversion in the AFC Championship game against Denver? That was clutch. He screwed up there. Once again, in his entire career, you can use regular season games even for me here. Tell me a time Joe Montana failed in the last 2 minutes.
Look, I don't know.
Tell me a time. No, wait. Now you're trying to be like you're running for president or governor or something. When I ask you a yes or no question, just give me a yes or no answer. Can you give me times where Joe Montana had the ball in his hand with the chance to win it in a big game and didn't get it done?
I would say no, but
okay.
But you tell
now, next up, what we got is this. Joe Montana did not lose in the Super Bowl. And I think this Eagles team was better than him. So I think there's an excuse to lose that. But those two Giants teams were not better than him, and he lost those games.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Oh, am I kidding you?
Come on. You can't tell me.
Oh, my God. You're a freaking moron sometimes, Lucas, even though I love you. I'll tell you what. They lost 17-14. 14. Tom Brady only put up 14 points with what's supposed to be the greatest offense of all time.
He went down the field, and Randy Moss got which should have been a game-winning touchdown, and an Eli Manning threw the luckiest Super Bowl pass, and David Tyree got the luckiest Super Bowl.
And now let me tell you, let me ask you this though: when the Giants scored, there was a minute left, and they were only down by 3 points. Tom Brady got the ball, and what happened?
Okay, he didn't do it, but at the end of the day,
he didn't do it. So there's another time he didn't do it. Now, let's go fast forward to the second time they lost. When they played the Giants the second time.
David Tyree with that catch was the luckiest catch in Super Bowl. If that doesn't get caught, they don't win the game.
Really? How do you know that?
They don't win the game.
It wasn't fourth down.
It would have been fourth down.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
Fourth down.
I'm sorry, but you know what? I mean, when you look at this stuff, all I can tell you is this. All you're giving me is excuses why he didn't make a last-minute drive. Both of those Super Bowls, he needed field goals. He had a whole minute to get down the field, and he didn't. He didn't. He failed. Joe Montana wouldn't have failed.
Tom Brady's greatness. Look at the games that he could have lost, and that he won. Super Bowl 49.
Now you're going to give me games that he could have lost.
Super Bowl 49 against the Seahawks. They're down 10.
Okay. Wait a second, because I think if this was turned around,
but
this is crazy.
Greatness.
This is crazy because you just blamed him because of the defense. They beat Seattle because of a defensive play, right?
Because Tom Brady.
Really? Because Tom Brady? Give me a break. The game was won because Russell Wilson drove his team to the 1-yard line. Bill Belichick made a great call, which saved that Super Bowl. The coverage he ran, he knew what play was coming. It wasn't a Marshawn Lynch run.
Tom Brady put them in that position to make that play, Mike.
What? Wait a second.
Tom Brady put them in that position to make a defensive stop.
Hold on. So when the defense loses them the game, that's not Brady's fault. And when the defense wins them the game, Brady gets credit for it.
Points.
Huh?
Okay, so in the games where the defense helped Brady, Tom Brady put them in a position to make a defensive stop. If Marshawn Lynch, and I think we can both agree on this, if Marshawn Lynch had run on that ball, the game is over, Mike.
No, we don't know that. We do not know that.
Well, okay, Mike, but come on, you use your football instinct.
Well, see, I can use my football instinct to tell you this, because, see, this is the thing I do know. Hold on, Lucas, it's second and goal at the 1, right? Seattle's got 1 timeout left. So what happens is this. This was screwed up because of a bad route. Without the bad route, it's probably a knockdown pass. The problem with running the ball in second and 1 is if Marshawn Lynch doesn't get in, you use your last time out, and then everybody knows what you're doing. I'm not defending Pete Carroll. I'm not saying that it's the call I would have made, but I understand why he did it. And see, people that don't understand just don't understand. But when you limit yourself to all of a sudden it's third and 1 with 20 seconds left, you have no timeouts, you don't have time to run the ball 2 more times. So I think what should have happened there, I wouldn't have gave it to Lynch. I would have booted Russell Wilson the opposite way and give him a run-pass option into the end zone. And then I would have come out and run the ball on third and goal at the 1 with 1 timeout left in 17 seconds. If he doesn't get in, I call timeout. I still got another down. The problem is, at second and goal at the 1, if you don't get that, you got to use the timeout, and then you're limited to throwing the ball twice probably. Because if you run it again, it's over with. So, but my whole point is this. The defense won him that game. You could say he put him in position, but if he'd have played in the first half of the game like he did the second half, the game wouldn't even have been close, right?
Well, the game was tied at the half, Mike, 14 all. We had a decent first half, but then Tom Brady raised his level. He raised the first half doesn't matter. It's the fourth quarter when it really matters. When the game is on the line, he raised his level, just like he did in Super Bowl 51 against the Falcons. You could say the Falcons gave him that game. I mean, look, they should have ran the ball. We can all agree on that. But Tom Brady put them in position.
Dude.
I'm
telling you this. This is the thing. The thing that blows my mind is this. You sit here. Wait a second. Lucas. Whole point is here. Would you sit here and tell me that the defense is not why they won that first Super Bowl? You'd lose all credibility. I mean, the defense scored over half the points in that Super Bowl. Yeah, he made three great throws. He made 3 great throws to get in field goal range. It's not the same. It's not the same as Joe Montana with 3 minutes left against a damn good Cincinnati Bengals defense that had shut them out most of that game. I mean, you got to remember, to score that game at the time, 16-13. The Niners were held to a touchdown and 2 field goals the entire game. He comes out with 3 minutes and 22 seconds left, has to go 92 yards. And people forget, I think the second play of that drive, Randy Cross false starts, and all of a sudden they're 3rd and 10 at their goal line. And he walks right down the field and he wins the game. So if you're going to consider clutch, once again, I challenge you this. Tell me when Joe Montana blew a game like that at the end. I mean, I'm a Bengals fan, and I can give you this. Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 23, 1984, the Bengals played them in the regular season, had a 17-3 lead in the fourth quarter. Montana beats them 24-17. 1987, the Bengals are up 27-26 with 2 seconds left. Montana's got the ball in the 40. He throws the ball into the end zone, and it's not even a Hail Mary. He hits Jerry Rice for a touchdown. Bengals lose again. 1990, Bengals are up 17-10 with 2 minutes left. Bengals lose 20-17. Joe Montana is the master. I think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback that ever lived, but anybody that says they'd rather have anybody other than Joe Montana on the field in the last 2 minutes is one of two things. They're either under the age of 40 and never saw him, or they're just crazy. So you're under the age of 40, so you're not crazy. But in the end,
no, I'm not.
The greatest player that ever lived.
I'm not. Look, all this ended with this. These are 2 all-time great quarterbacks. Look, if it worked for that Falcons comeback, Mike, I would have put Joe Montana at number 1. I would have. I think for me, it's really close. But you're right. I mean, I am a younger person, but Tom Brady, in my opinion, in those big games, had put his team into position to win. You look at Super Bowl 49, you look at Super Bowl 51, you look at the AFC Championship last year against Jacksonville. He put them in position. They're 2 great quarterbacks. We can agree on that, and we can agree on that Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time.
Well, I think they're 1 and 1A. And like I said, as a Bengals fan, that may swing it. But this is the other thing that I'll give you, and this is why Sammy Ball is my number 1. Sammy Ball had multiple coaches when he played. I think there is a huge case to be made that if there's no Bill Walsh, no Bill Belichick, there's no legend of Tom Brady, there's no legend of Joe
disagree.
Montana. You can disagree all you want, but the fact is this. The biggest part to being a great NFL quarterback is being in the correct system, being with the correct coach. There's no great if we list our 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time, I challenge you to find me one guy that didn't play for a legendary NFL coach, because it doesn't exist. And if Sammy Ball didn't play quarterback, he would probably go down as the greatest punter and one of the top 10 defensive backs in NFL history. That's why he's number 1. All right, Steve, any final words?
No, I listened to your guys' debate. I think basically questions that I would have are these. would Sammy Ball's abilities translate to today's game with the same level of success that he had when he played? I don't know the answer to that. I'm only just saying that would be something that I would question. Would he be able to do today what he did when he played?
Well,
By far,
Steve,
he's
real
great.
quick.
Well, hang on.
No, I had your answer.
You know, I hadn't finished.
Well, I had your answer.
Secondly, Brady is a product of a great coach, a great system. I don't think that Tom Brady would be Tom Brady playing in 25 of the 30 other systems out there. We wouldn't be Tom Brady. He got the right fit at the right time in the right place with the right coach. Yeah. Montana, the thing that difference separates Montana and Brady to me is, as you said eloquently, in the clutch, Montana never screwed up when it mattered. And for that reason, I think that when the ultimate goal of any football team, player, anything, is to win championships and Super Bowls, I think that puts Montana, because he never failed in doing that when that opportunity presented itself to him. He never failed. And for that reason alone, and I like Sammy Ball. He was a name I wrote down, but I question whether he would translate to today.
Well, this is the thing, Steve. Nobody that played in the past translates to today, except for Jim Brown because of size. But I also think this.
Right.
I think we've got to take into consideration, if Sammy Ball is born in 1980, he's probably physically going to be bigger. He's going to be training. Yeah. He's not going to have to work in the off season. So that's what I take into it. When I look at it, what I try to do is I try to compare who was dominant in their era to somebody else that was dominant. And it does mean a lot to me that guys like Bednarik, Night Train Lane was a great return man. Guys that could do more than just one thing. That's why I don't have one quarterback in my list except for Ball. And he's only there because of what he did as a defensive back and what he did as a punter. So overall, football players to me are generally going to be defensive guys. It's just because, those are the guys that are playing football. Lucas, I have all the respect in the world for Tom Brady. I know what you're saying. I'm just saying, if you'd have lived through it, you would be much more afraid of Tom Brady or of Joe Montana in the last minute of the game playing against your team.
No, and look, I think you make a good assessment putting them 1 and 1A, and I think you make a good point that the younger obviously the younger generation, recency bias here, we're used to Tom Brady, and and to me, Tom Brady in the modern generation is kind of the benchmark for, clutchness and but I'm not trying to minimize what Joe Montana did either, and because he was also clutch too. I just think Brady's just a little better because he's got more playoff wins, got more Super Bowls, and yeah.
Yeah, but also you got to remember this. He's got more playoff wins, he's got more Super Bowls because he's not playing in the NFC of the 80s. The NFC of the 80s was probably more dominant than any conference has ever been in a decade. If you look at what he had to go through, you had the Cowboys of the early 80s. You had the Giants in the mid to late 80s. You had the Philadelphia Eagles with Buddy Ryan's defense. You had the Bears and Mike Ditka. You had the Washington Redskins and Joe Gibbs. He had to get through all that. And let's face it, today in the AFC, you got to get through the Ravens and the Steelers, and that's about it. I just think competition-wise, getting to the Super Bowl for Brady or for Montana was much more difficult than what it is for Brady.
Yeah, I would say in recent years that's accurate, I would say.
All right, let's end on
that.
But,
again, you can't minimize his greatness, too.
Nobody minimized his greatness. I just said that I thought he was the greatest quarterback. I think Montana's more clutch. Steve, tell us about tomorrow's Survive in Advance.
Tomorrow's Survive in Advance, we actually are going to really digress degenerately down to a level well below Mike, and we're actually going to bring on a young man who spent the week down at Kentucky Motor Speedway, and we're going to introduce our new NASCAR program that we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk to Alex Gray, who attended the Kentucky NASCAR race down at Kentucky Motor Speedway. and we'll spend some time talking about the status of the sport, introducing. He and I will start a program probably next week, breaking down NASCAR in a more defined, definitive role. We will leave Mike out of the equation.
No, Mike
for
knows
his own,
what's going on. You don't have to leave him. Mike.
For his own health and sanity, we will keep Mike away and go from there. On Thursday, we have a great show. We have a gentleman, Dave Magley, who has been president of the Canadian Basketball League, ran the commission of the Canadian Basketball League, Lucas. He has started up last year and became commissioner of the North American Premier Basketball League. He left the position, turned around and bought the North American Premier Basketball League, and has renamed it the Basketball League, and is going to relaunch an entirely new professional basketball league, not directly competing with the NBA, going into markets where the NBA has no footing, on a much more of a grassroots type scale. Dave's going to be here on Thursday to introduce the league, where they're at now currently, what their mission statement is, what their culture is, and where they're expanding into. And Lucas, Dave, are you familiar with Dave Magley? Lucas?
No,
No? Okay, well.
Okay. No, yeah.
He is now.
Living in an igloo somewhere in Canada, no doubt. And then Friday, Mike, I believe we're going to talk boxing, aren't we?
A little boxing. We're going to have John Raspani on, who wrote the bestseller about the Gotti Ward trilogy called Intimate Warfare. He's going to talk a little bit about the cruiserweight title fight, which is much bigger than the British Open coming up. Usyk and Gassiev. We'll also talk a little Manny Pacquiao, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back, and me, him, and Steve are going to discuss the 10 greatest sports movies of all time, which everybody knows as Happy Gilmore. All right, Lucas. Lucas, any final words?
Well, I thought it was a great discussion today. I think, again, it's, I think, we all really shared our perspectives, and yeah, it was great to debate with you, Mike.
All right,
Good
Steve.
discussion. And Steve.
Steve.
I'm here. Yes, listening.
Any final words of wisdom?
No, I think Montana's the most important player to play the game.
The most important
in terms of clutch
player
situations.
The most important player in NFL history was Red Grange. Without Red Grange and George Halas, there's no NFL.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, we're going to wrap up.
Not totally true, but
It's true. Tomorrow, we will be back with Alex Gray and Steve talking a little NASCAR. We'll also talk about sports that are relevant right before that. Also, tonight...
Hey, wait, Mike, I want to go on record saying right now, it will be our lowest listened to show of the week. So before Mike starts blurting that out on Friday,
not necessarily,
as we get into boxing.
What we're going to do
is because I understand NASCAR's a niche sport, but still is an important American sport that needs to be addressed at some point in time.
Dude, we're
on our show.
All right. Now, this is the thing.
All right.
If people listen
I'm preempting your bullshit you're going to throw at us.
If people listen in, what we will do is, at the end of the next day, or the next time Lucas is on, what we'll do is, if the listeners on that were close to normal, we are going to send out a signed Lucas photo with him naked. He will send that to you with his phone number. Anybody that wants it can get it. So, that good with you, Lucas?
Yeah, I don't know if that's legal or not, but
it's legal in Canada.
I'll check with my lawyers on.
I thought everything was legal in Canada.
We do have some strict laws here.
Oh, you do? Well, hell.
Yeah, party poopers.
Well, all right. Well, we're going to wrap the show up. Tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern, you can hear me with Brian Schmidt and former CFL legend, won 5 Grey Cups, Robert Drummond on the CFL Weekly Pick'em Show. Tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern, we will have the Inside Boxing Weekly Show with myself, Jeremiah Pricer, and John Einreinhofer. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher. Tune in wherever you hear sports podcasts. You'll find the grueling truth. So for Lukas Weese, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.